There are moments in life when silence becomes unbearable, not because nothing is being said, but because everything that matters has been forgotten. You can live beside someone for years, share a bed, share meals, even share dreams once whispered in the dark, and still the distance grows like frost across a window pane, slow and silent, until one morning you wake up and realize you can't see the world through it anymore. Love fades not with a scream, but with neglect. Desire doesn't die in betrayal. It dies in the absence of presence. And somewhere in that quiet decay, a question begins to echo. When did I stop being seen? We spend our lives touching without feeling, speaking without meaning, reaching without truly connecting. We confuse motion for emotion, habit for love, gestures for intimacy. And yet, the body remembers. Beneath the skin lie memories of touch that once said, I see you. You exist. Those are the touches that awaken not because they are erotic, but because they are intentional, because they carry presence. The difference between brushing against someone and touching them is not in the hands, but in the heart that moves them. And that difference is everything. There are women who awaken and women who merely pass by. The first understand that connection is not born in the bed, but in the soul. They know that a man, especially one who has lived, fought, carried, and endured, cannot be reached by shallow desire. His armor is thick not from pride, but from years of being unseen. To touch him is to speak to the part of him that no longer believes he can be understood. And if you can reach that place, you will find not lust, but life. Picture him standing in the middle of another ordinary day, shoulders slightly bent beneath invisible weight. The world asks of him endlessly to provide, to decide, to protect, but rarely to feel. His body moves through routines as his mind drifts in quiet exhaustion. Then, without warning, you approach. You don't speak. You don't demand. You simply place your hand on the curve of his lower back, not as a lover seeking attention, but as a soul offering presence. That single gesture done without expectation becomes a language older than words. For a brief moment, the years fall away. The armor loosens. Something ancient inside him exhales. It's not magic. It's remembrance. You're reminding him of what the world made him forget, that he's still alive beneath all the roles he's been forced to play. The lower back is not just muscle and bone. It's where burdens live. Every disappointment, every unspoken fear, every uncried tear stored there, waiting to be acknowledged. When you touch him there with genuine care, you're not seducing. You're witnessing. You're saying, I see your effort. I see your exhaustion. You don't have to carry it alone. Desire born from that moment isn't the desperate kind that fades with dawn. It's something slower, deeper, like warmth, returning to cold limbs after a long winter. Because he feels seen again, not as a provider, not as a function, but as a man. And that's where everything begins to change. The body speaks before the mouth does. It tells truths we don't dare to voice. And in that first moment of conscious touch, something within both of you begins to stir. You start to remember what connection was before it was turned into performance, before it was reduced to technique or strategy. You remember that love is not a transaction, it's an act of awareness. There is a place on his body that almost no one remembers. It's quiet, hidden, unassuming, the inner part of the arm. A strip of skin most people pass by without thought, yet within it lives one of the oldest languages of affection. When you touch him there softly but deliberately, something unexpected happens. It's not lust that awakens, it's memory. The memory of being cared for without reason or demand. The kind of tenderness that once lived in childhood when love was given freely, not earned through performance or success. We grow older and forget that affection can exist without an agenda. Every touch becomes negotiation of desire, of validation of need. And slowly, something sacred within us begins to starve. But when your fingers trace that quiet line along his inner arm, you're telling him, You don't have to prove anything here. You don't have to be strong or right or useful. You can just be. That is the rarest invitation a man ever receives. This isn't about seduction, it's about restoration. The nervous system recognizes truth before the mind does. When touched with intention, the body sighs in ways it can't explain. And in that small, forgotten space, you awaken something he didn't even realize had fallen asleep, his right to feel worthy without earning it. Most men live untouched by tenderness. They are patted on the back for achievement, shaken hands with, for business, hugged in celebration. But rarely, if ever, are they caressed for no reason at all. Over time, they learn to hide from that absence, to call it independence. They wear silence like armor and confusion like pride. But inside, there's a longing that aches quietly for someone who sees beyond the surface. When you touch the inner arm, you bypass his defenses. You're not asking for anything, you're giving recognition to what's been forgotten. And in doing so, you're reminding both of you that love doesn't always have to roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it breathes in stillness. This kind of presence can't be faked. You can't imitate it through clever words or practiced gestures. It requires something that our world doesn't often reward: patience. To touch someone without the hunger of expectation is an act of immense strength. It's to say, I am whole enough to give without taking. And that energy, that calm fullness, is what transforms a touch from ordinary to transcendent. You might notice how he begins to soften, not immediately, not dramatically, but quietly. The tension in his shoulders eases. His breath deepens. His gaze lingers just a little longer, as though he's trying to understand what's different. What he's feeling isn't arousal, it's safety. And safety for a man who's spent a lifetime performing strength is the most seductive feeling of all. When a woman touches with presence, she doesn't just awaken the man in front of her, she awakens the woman within herself. The one who isn't desperate for approval, who doesn't confuse attention with love. The one who knows that her energy, when grounded in truth, is enough to shift the air in a room. That's the kind of power that can't be taught. It's remembered. So when you next find yourself beside him, don't rush. Don't plan. Let your hand rest lightly on that quiet place between wrist and shoulder. Let silence do the speaking. You'll know you've done it right, not by how he reacts, but by the stillness that fills the space between you. That stillness is where the soul recognizes itself. There's a point on the body where vulnerability and power meet, a place few dare to touch, not because it's forbidden, but because it reveals too much. The edge of the jaw. It's where pride softens, where the mask slips, where the eyes and mouth, two gateways of truth, converge. To touch a man, there is to step into sacred territory. It's not a caress of possession, it's a declaration of trust. You're saying, I see how close I am to what could hurt you, and I choose to protect it. A man who's lived long enough to build walls around himself doesn't crumble from grand gestures. He yields only to quiet courage. The touch on his jaw isn't about claiming him, it's about reminding him that surrender can exist without humiliation, that there is beauty in letting someone close, not to take, but to witness. Picture this, the two of you are speaking, voices low, the conversation wandering between the ordinary and the unspoken. He's focused, measured, his guard still intact. Then you lift your hand and trace the line where his jaw meets his neck, just for a heartbeat. Not seductive, not hesitant, simply present. You hold his gaze and then let go as if nothing happened. But something has. Because for that instant, you spoke a language older than words. I could harm you, but I won't. That's what trust feels like to a man who's forgotten how. This kind of gesture doesn't create attraction the way we've been taught to believe. It builds reverence, and reverence is rarer than desire. Desire comes and goes, but reverence roots itself deep. It tells him that what he carries, the fatigue, the fear, the quiet nobility, deserves gentleness. Touching the jaw is touching the story of control. It's where defiance and exhaustion hide. Every man learns to clench it when he's angry, when he's scared, when he refuses to break. It's the hinge between his voice and his silence. So when you reach for it with the calmness of someone who has no agenda, you are not just soothing him, you are undoing years of restraint. You're giving permission for stillness to return where tension has lived for too long. The truth is, many women mistake this power. They chase reaction instead of connection. They want to see the spark, to hear the breath catch, to confirm their influence. But real power doesn't need validation. It's felt, not performed. When you can touch without the need for proof, your energy speaks for you. That is what he remembers. Not your hand, but your intention. And it's not just him who changes. In moments like this, something in you transforms as well. You begin to understand that intimacy isn't about pursuit. It's about presence. It's not about taking down his defenses, but showing him there's nothing to defend against. You realize how sacred it is to hold another's fragility with steadiness, how rare it is to be a safe place in a world that demands constant performance. When you master the art of that silence, when your fingertips can rest on a man's skin with no desire to conquer, only to understand, you begin to move differently through the world. You stop reaching outward for validation because you've already found the still point within. That stillness becomes magnetic. And that's what true connection is built on, not words, not tricks, but energy aligned with truth. There's a part of his body he's forgotten exists, not because it's hidden, but because no one has ever cared enough to find it, the hollow behind his knees. It sounds strange, almost laughable to call that place sacred. Yet it holds a kind of quiet wisdom, a tenderness that reveals who we are when the world stops watching. To touch him, there is to acknowledge what's been left behind, not just in him, but in yourself. The back of the knees carries memory not of pleasure, but of surrender. It's the part that bends when we kneel, when we yield, when we rest. And for a man who's spent his life standing firm, fighting, protecting, holding things together, there is something profound in being touched where he bends. You're not asking him to weaken. You're giving him permission to soften. Every man carries an invisible ledger of responsibilities. It's written in the way he walks, the way he sits, the way his body quietly endures without complaint. And when you reach for that overlooked space, you're sending him a message: I see what you hide. I honor what you carry. You're touching what he himself has stopped acknowledging, his need to be cared for, to be noticed, to be allowed to rest. But this gesture isn't about the body, it's about the unseen. Because what lies behind the knees mirrors what lies behind the soul, the neglected, the unspoken, the uncomfortable. The places we avoid because we don't know how to handle them. The truth is, most people never touch what they don't understand. They love the visible parts, the ones that shine, but they flinch from what's hidden. That's why so many relationships fade. They die from the weight of what's left untouched. When your hand reaches that quiet curve, you're not playing a role. You're stepping into authenticity. You're saying, I want to know you where others don't look. And for a man who's lived in silence, who's learned to tuck his vulnerability beneath layers of composure, that gesture becomes something revolutionary. It's not arousal, it's recognition. Jung called it the meeting with the shadow, the moment we dare to face what we've denied. In that shadow lives everything repressed, the tenderness, the grief, the longing to be held without question. When you touch behind his knees, you awaken that shadow, not to expose it, but to integrate it. You're telling him he doesn't have to hide from himself anymore. And here's the paradox: the deeper you go in understanding him, the more you start to see yourself. Because you can't touch what's unseen in another without awakening what's unseen in you. As your hand lingers there, you begin to feel it, the echo of all the times you too were unseen. The moments when your softness was dismissed, your care unreciprocated, your quiet strength misunderstood. You realize that this isn't just about him. It's about reclaiming your own capacity to feel, to notice, to connect. Every touch becomes a mirror. And the question that emerges isn't, do I know him, but do I truly know myself? So don't rush. Don't make it a performance. Let that moment breathe. Because when you can touch what others overlook, when you can find beauty in the forgotten, you're not just reviving desire. You're rebuilding meaning. and meaning is what keeps love alive long after passion has cooled. The final touch is not of the flesh, it is of the unseen. It begins where thought is born and ends where silence takes over the crown of the head, the scalp. This is not the touch of lovers, it is the touch of souls. Few women ever reach this place, and fewer still understand what it means. To touch a man's scalp with intention is to hold the storm within him without fear. You are saying, I can touch your mind, and I will not wound it. There beneath your fingertips live his doubts, his failures, the constant hum of responsibility. It is where every decision he's ever made begins, where every unspoken fear takes shape. When you rest your hand there without words, without wanting anything, you are holding more than a head. You are holding the temple of his being. You are telling him through stillness, I don't just see your body, I see your thoughts, and I respect them. This kind of touch terrifies some women because it demands the one thing the modern world resists: patience. You cannot rush trust. You cannot demand reverence. You can only create the conditions for it to appear. And so when your hand settles gently on his hair, you must quiet your mind too. Your silence must match his. Because the scalp, more than any other place, senses truth. Done carelessly, it feels invasive. Done with presence, it feels divine. If he exhales when you touch him there, it's not pleasure, it's release. The body finally letting go of a tension he's carried for years. The tension of needing to be the one who always knows, who always leads, who never falters. In that exhale, he's no longer the provider, the protector, the name others call on. He becomes, for a rare and fleeting moment, just a man human, fragile, worthy of peace. This is the essence of awakening. It's not about learning new techniques or unlocking secrets. It's about remembering how to be present enough that every gesture becomes sacred. When your energy meets his with calm awareness, you teach him without words that intimacy is not about taking but witnessing, that love is not control but space. And here's the truth that few dare to say aloud: you cannot awaken someone else until you have awakened yourself. If you approach him with emptiness, he will feel it. If you reach for him to fill your loneliness, he will sense the hunger beneath the tenderness. But when you come to him whole, when your touch asks for nothing but to connect, he will trust you with everything. Because the soul recognizes fullness, it knows when it's safe. That is what separates women who awaken from those who merely seek attention. The first do not touch for validation, they touch for communion. They have learned that their hands are extensions of their spirit, and that true desire blooms not from seduction, but from safety. So the next time you find yourself beside him, resist the urge to speak. Let your hand rise slow and steady and rest upon his head. Feel the warmth beneath his skin, the pulse of his life, the quiet rhythm of his breath. Say nothing. Do nothing. Just stay. That silence is the prayer. That stillness is the awakening. And if you've reached this point, if you've listened, breathed, and let these words sink into your bones, then something in you already knows this was never just about men. It was about you. About remembering that your presence can heal, that your energy can change the air around you, that your touch, when born from peace instead of need, is sacred. If these words stirred something in you, let it move through you. Let it change how you love, how you see, how you exist. And when you're ready, share that light forward. Like this video, share it with someone who has forgotten what it means to be seen, and subscribe to join a space where presence still matters. Then, in the comments, write just 4 words: I love wisdom. Because that's what this has always been about, not desire, but awareness, not seduction, but soul. And awareness once awakened never sleeps again.